Martha Beck, I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm so happy to be talking to you again. It's been too long.
It really has. And I know I've told you this story before, but I tell it often because for obvious reasons, you are who I have reached out to or ended up speaking to during some of the most horrible points of my life. But there was this one point where my mother had died and I was going through, and I had breast cancer, and I was going through this like whole new evolution, and I felt something building in me, which ultimately became quantum love and a whole new trajectory in my life. But it was so abstract, and I was just in what I now call my reawakening, because I was really awake as a kid, but I'd shut that shit down long before.
Wow.
So I was in the middle of that. I felt something coming and like something wanting to be created, but it was so abstract. And something told me to reach out to you. And so we had this conversation. You know, this happens to me too. People are like, you said this thing to me. I'm like, I don't even remember saying it, but to them, into their lives. So you probably won't remember saying this to me, but I was expressing to you how I felt this thing coming and I wanted to create it. And I didn't know even exactly what it was. And you said the words I've never forgotten. It's gotten me through everything I've had to write since, which is just write one true thing a day. That's all you have to do. And that seriously changed everything for me.
Oh my goodness. That says so much about you. I was just rah, rah, rah. And then you took this little thing and made a huge.
Well, it was so powerful. I mean, that's such a beautiful statement. And to anyone with writer's block or who feels that creative muse coming on, but is like, what the frick is this? And how do I do this? And it feels so big to me and so abstract. And how do I wrap my head around this? Like, that is powerful. Just write one true thing a day. And then that's what you have to do. So I just finished a manuscript and I was really stuck. And I was like, oh, I'm going back to just writing one true thing a day. And it worked.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy. I can help a tiny bit.
You helped a lot, and it feels relevant to part of what we're discussing. And the main thing I want to get into with you, your new book, Beyond Anxiety, because, writing it for me, I mean, writing one true thing a day and just focusing on that did solve this anxiety of like, what is this? How am I going to do it? It's too big for me. I don't know how to do it. Like, it took all of that away. So to me, it's kind of a beautiful story, but also a beautiful segue into this idea, because, let's just talk about the landscape right now, right? On the heels of COVID, obviously during COVID,
right?
Everybody was a ball of anxiety.
Yes. Anxiety actually went up around the world by a full 25% during the pandemic, and it didn't go back down.
Yes, that's what I think is really, really important. Because yes, you can say we were being told this was life or death. We were
scary.
It was scary as hell. I mean, people were desanitizing their groceries and fighting in the aisles for toilet paper, and like shit was going down. Like, people were really scared. But what happened, and this is what I wanted to also get your take on, is what seems to have happened is that as we went, well, first of all, as we couldn't go outside anymore, we had to go inside. And when we went inside, some shit started rising to the surface that we had been avoiding with our busy, wild rat race we were all on, or most of us were on. I'm sure you weren't on that, but most of us were. So what I've noticed, and maybe you know the statistics of this too, because you said it hasn't really changed, is that there's been a lot of anxiety around re-entry. Even all these, now it's been several years since we're post-COVID.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like the anxiety has not gone anywhere once we can get to our lives.
It hasn't. And I remember, when I was researching this, I remember being a little kid and having them say, the Russians are going to nuke us. Learn to hide under your desk because that's really you got a little piece of wood, you'll be fine. And I remember all it did was give my 6-year-old self intense anxiety. Yeah. So we've always got reasons to be anxious. That's terrorism. I mean, the world is scary.
So scary right
dealing
now.
with a mudslide as we speak, right? But I was wondering, why doesn't it level off? Because in animals, I once watched a wildebeest come up to a pride of lions. Why? Because wildebeests are idiots. Let me just say that. And these lions, it was the wildebeest migration. So they just eaten like 3 wild wildebeests. And this antelope comes up going, gonk, gonk. And the lions were like, seriously, are you going to make us kill you? So one of them finally got up and she's like, I'll do it. She starts walking and the wildebeest was like, whoa, go, go. And then she leveled in and she started to run like the real attack. And that wildebeest just shot out of there and like was going like 1,000 miles an hour. And the lion just gave up. She was like,
Yeah.
oh, screw
I'm
it.
full anyway. Yeah.
In that instant, the wildebeest stopped running and started to graze. It had, with the lion still there, it
Wow.
had gone from full fight or flight to absolute calm instantaneously. And that's the way our systems are meant to work. So why, when we fear, does the fear just keep going up? I was very, very fortunate to have the friendship of Jill Bolte Taylor, who was the Harvard neuroanatomist who had the massive left hemisphere stroke. We had a lot of conversations when I was wondering about this. And she was telling me how when the left side of her brain was off duty, there was no anxiety.
Yeah.
There was just pure presence. And her way of describing the brain, which is really, it's based on a mountain of research, but it's really simple, is that on the left side, whenever we see something scary, we go, ooh, and immediately we start trying to control things and we tell a story about why we should be afraid.
Mm.
And that story feeds back into the brain as if it's like if a lion attacked me, it went away, then I would sit there and go, but what if another lion comes?
Yeah.
Because we're able to imagine so powerfully, it would be for my brain as if another lion had actually come. So I would have boom, 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 that same trigger over and over. And the left hemisphere of the brain in humans does not like to give up its control.
No.
So we get stuck in this spiral of stories and imaginary threats that feel very real. And it just goes up and up and up. And it never equalizes because we never move over to the whole brain, bring in the right side of the brain. And you do that through things like curiosity and creativity, which is what my book is about. How do you actually take the energy that's fueling your endlessly upward spiraling anxiety and feed that energy to the right side of the brain where you can find presence and joy and creation and the mystery and love and meaning and purpose. It's missing from the perspective we have when we're anxious, and we live in an anxious world that's constantly making us more anxious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I recently read a statistic that they did this study and they found that 85% of the things that we're worried about don't even happen. And
Yep.
in that 15% that it does happen, for over 75% of them, it's not nearly, it's like nothing compared to what they imagined it was going to be. And that really stuck with me. And it also is making me think like there's this little hack that I've been playing with because I have been experiencing a lot of, and we're going to get into how to make that shift. I'm going to have you practice on me.
I cannot wait.
I mean, I could choose 20 things because I don't tend to be anymore. I mean, I used to be when I was little and and I'm a recovering type A. So, but for years I've had very little anxiety, or when I did, it was like a reasonable reason.
Right.
I guess we could say there's a reasonable reason right now with all the
Fear
chaos.
is a healthy and wonderful thing, but it's meant to go up when we're in the presence of danger and then down again.
Right. And that's how it was for many, many years until my son died. And what I've realized is that I am much more, I think because of that trauma, even though I've worked through a lot of it, there's this gobsmacked trauma inside me that's waiting, and is ready and girding. So maybe that's what's underneath it. But one thing that I've been playing with that kind of, and I'm curious what you think of neurologically, because you now, have been exploring this. When I say, so, and this isn't going to be my example, but one example of something I've been really anxious about is my eldest son, who's been having a lot of depression and feeling hopeless and helpless. And so I'm afraid that may go too far and he might do something impulsive that, and how could I live with that? Right. And so I would start ruminating on it and worrying about it and then try to talk myself down. Like, what the hell are you doing? This is just, why are you attaching to this thing happening? And one of my spiritual teacher friends said, I have a hack for you. Say this. Why is it so true that Ethan is happy, healthy, and thriving? Like, why is it so true that he's feeling in alignment and filled with excitement and creative joy? And I tried it and I was like, whoa, that like immediately takes away the anxiety. Why is that? And what you said to me is that turns on the part of your brain, because our brain attaches and starts to find reason.
Yes.
So when you say, why is it so true that this amazing thing is happening, the opposite of what I'm afraid of, then my brain starts trying to find reasons why that is true.
Yeah, exactly. And that's wonderful. That's redirecting your attention toward the positive. And we come by our negativity, honestly, because if you were given a basket of 15 golden retriever puppies and one cobra, all your attention would go to the cobras. You would not be looking at the puppies, even though there are many more puppies than cobras. Our brains evolved to look at that cobra and take action. But then as evolution went along, it taught us to tell stories and create landscapes and lifescapes in our minds that are actually feeding us whatever we're paying attention to. So that's what you did. You changed the focus of your attention. You opened up things on the right side of your brain. So then the left side could be balanced. You don't turn off the left side. You don't lose anything. You just turn on the joy, the meaning, and the evidence of what is okay.
Yeah.
Like I once wrote a book that upset a lot of people, and I got death threats and I got hate mail that was just so toxic. And it was destroying my emotional, that stuff just rang in my head night and day. And then somebody said, have you been reading the thank you emails? So my publisher started sending me emails from people who had been helped by that book.
Beautiful.
And by the time I got to 2,000 emails, and I can just imagine 2,000, that's a lot of people. And my attention was fully on them instead of on the people who never needed or wanted that book. Fine, they don't have to like it. Same thing. It's the focus of our attention that creates the inner lifescape to which our emotions are responding.
Yeah, where attention goes, energy flows.
Absolutely.
And so when you talk about the anxiety spiral, which I know you get into in the book, is that what this is? The spiral? Like, what does that spiral look like?
I'm going to use a little sciencey words.
Okay, sciencey words.
From engineering, because I love the science. There's something called an unregulated feedback cycle.
Okay.
And that is when, if you were using a microphone and you had an amplifier right next to it, and the microphone takes your voice, feeds it to the amplifier, makes it much louder, but then the amplifier is now feeding into the microphone, which is amplifying it and sending it back. And very quickly you get something called a feedback screech.
Yes, I know that screech.
Horrible.
Yes.
Well, that's because nothing is bringing the levels down. It's just feeding more sound waves into the system, and it just becomes unbearable. That's unregulated. Now, a regulated feedback system is, I'm talking to you on my computer. If it gets too loud, the computer will mute it down so that it doesn't become a screech in your headphones. We now have technology that regulates that.
Yeah.
But in our brains, anxiety is like a feedback screech. I'm afraid. I make a story about how I should be afraid. Oh my God, I could make an even bigger story. Oh, now that's my reality. Oh, I should be even more controlling than I was before. But because even worse things could happen.
On and on and on.
And it's in the media, and it's in our conversations. And at school, they make people do drills for catastrophe. Of course, that's useful. But like me at 6 years old, anticipating a nuclear attack, did I really need to worry so much about? I worried about that every day as a child.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. And here in at Los Angeles, the earthquake drills and
the big one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that feedback loop that just gets deeper and wider till you feel like you're in the bottom of a pit.
You're in hell. You literally are in hell.
Yeah, that is. And
sorry.
Go ahead. What were you
The last book was about integrity, and I used Dante's Inferno. and he goes into this pit and goes down and down and down. And there are people screaming in pain all the way down. That's what it's like, this anxiety spiral.
Yeah. And we're doing that constantly. And many of us are living in the bottom of that spiral and even going deeper. And you're right. We're in this world now between social media and media in general, where it's the clickbait and the ratings, and they know that fear will get ratings and the fear mongering. And so everything is painted in a life or death situation, and we're all getting stuck in it. So the question then is, what is the antidote, right? Like, what do we do? Because I think every single one, I think you have to be Martha Beck or some, guru on a mountaintop to not be struggling a little bit right now with everything that we're being fed.
I struggle.
You
But
do.
honestly, I don't struggle very much.
Yeah.
I really don't. I did at the beginning doing this research and writing, but oh my gosh, by doing all these processes, I just watched my anxiety go down so dramatically. Anyway, the way out.
Yes.
We were talking, I don't know if we were on recording yet or not, but you were saying something about you get anxious and then you're like, why should I be so anxious? Like there's we have a negative response to our own anxiety, and people say, I need to bring my anxiety down. I need to end my anxiety. I need to stop my anxiety. If I were working with you I was your coach, and I came in and I said, I'm here to end you. I'm here to bring you down. I'm here to suppress you.
Make you wrong. Yeah.
It would make you more anxious. So the first thing you need to know is that think of your anxiety as a tiny little animal inside your brain, that it's your amygdala. It doesn't have any fancy cognitive abilities. It's just afraid. And when you come in and say, I'm going to bring you down, it gets more frightened.
Yeah, it gets more tenacious. That's true.
Yeah. So first of all, stop feeding the anxiety cycle by attacking it, and go into a place of kindness toward the part of you that is anxious. Don't try to stop it from feeling what it's feeling.
Okay.
I'm sure you've told this to 1,000 clients. Sit with it in
Yes.
its fear. Imagine picking it up. I mean, mine sometimes it's a bunny, sometimes it's a puppy. What's yours?
I actually see a little girl part of me. Like I see myself as a little girl, and I talk to myself like I would talk to a little child.
Yeah, and you sit with this little creature or this little child, and you give the energy of love to it and say, you don't have to stop being afraid right now. I would never try to force you to do anything, but I will stay with you, and I will tell you other stories. Did you know that I am now a grown-up who can drive a car, and I have bank accounts? And, I talk in the book about how I rescued a broken-winged blue jay from our backyard once, and I was driving it to the wildlife rescue center, and it was in a box wrapped in a towel, and I hear these scratching sounds, and I'm driving on the freeway at like 70 miles an hour, and he's really scratching hard in there, and I was thinking, he can't get out, he can't get out, he can't get out. Oh my God, he got out.
No.
I looked to my right, and there's this blue jay looking very large standing
that
on
can
his
be
box.
Scary. Yeah.
And I'm going 70 miles, and I'm like, he's never been behind glass. He's going to try to get out. And I thought, what if he attacks me? Like he could hurt his wing. He could peck out my eyes. I could cause an accident. Massive anxiety. This is while I'm writing the book. So I have all these processes. I pull over and I calm down my own anxiety creature. I just said, of course you're scared. This is an unprecedented situation. I don't know what's happening, but I'm here for you. And I call it kind internal self-talk, or KISSed.
Aw.
We're going to be okay one way or another. And I got really calm. And I looked over at the bird, and he jumped off his box and walked across the gear shift and climbed into my lap and settled down. And I just petted him. And let me tell you, he was the silkiest thing.
Oh, it must have been a beautiful moment.
He was so calm all of a sudden. And I just told him, you're going to be okay. I wrapped him in the towel, put him in his box, no more scratching, took him to the center. They took the box away. And then I hear all this screaming from inside. And this woman came back with my towel going, he's very feisty. I don't know what that was. But when I calmed the creature in myself,
Exactly.
it was such a vivid demonstration of how it helps creatures be calm.
and other people, because what you're also describing, which I mean, I love the story in and of itself for anxiety, but what you're literally describing is quantum love.
Yes,
Because what you were doing is in training
exactly.
energetically the bird to your calm energy, calmed the bird down. And I found that that's
Exactly.
one of the way, that's literally how I discovered quantum love, which ultimately the book is about relationships. But it started with my kids who were having, the eldest who I was talking about earlier, who was having severe, all of them were having severe anxiety because I had just, their grandmother just died of cancer and I had just been
Oh,
diagnosed with breast cancer.
oh
And
my
and
goodness.
everything, all hell was breaking loose and none of
Oh,
my usual, therapist mama strategies were working. And I stumbled upon what ultimately became quantum love. But the first piece of it was moving my body into a state of calm
yes.
before entering the room with one of them. And
So,
I immediately saw a change in them.
yeah,
Immediately. And
yeah.
that blew my mind.
It's
And
very powerful.
yeah. And that's what ultimately led to quantum love. So I love
That's
that
so
story.
cool, Laura. I cannot wait to read this. I haven't read it yet, but
Yeah.
oh,
Well, you're in the something in the thank you or in something because
oh,
that was the one where you told me write one true thing a day. Um,
yay. And here we are again. Oh my gosh, I've got to get it right now and read it.
yeah.
But so once you've calmed the creature,
Yeah.
here's the thing that puts your amygdala in a calmer state. But you always have that negativity bias. So you're always, and the society is constantly fueling your anxiety with its anxiety collectively. So what I realized is that the opposite of calm in the brain, the opposite of anxiety in the brain isn't calm. If you go to the same structures on the right side of the brain, so the amygdala looks at something, ooh, that's new. Instead of creating fear stories and control, it creates curiosity and creativity.
On the
So
right side.
if you go past an accident and you can't help rubbernecking, it's because part of you is afraid of what happened and part of you is curious
Yeah.
about what.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the moment you get really scientific about figuring stuff out, you're like, I'm going toward it. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to figure out how to not make that happen to me. That's why we evolved to have that reaction. You're going to start connecting with the pieces of what's going on. And ultimately, you're going to start thinking brand new thoughts. And it's a way of going into the quantum love. So where you have fear, you find curiosity. Curiosity is like the secret doorway out of anxiety and into not just calm, but creativity. And if you take that secret doorway, curiosity, creativity, then you start to create things the way you created your book. So you see, you're like, oh, my kids are frantic. I've just lost my mom. What do I do? Okay, I'm going to try to entrain them. I'm going to calm, go in. Holy smokes, they all calm down.
Yeah. What the hell's happening here? Yes.
That's curiosity. That's
Yes.
the research you were doing on curiosity. And sorry, one of my lights just went out. The moment you saw that it was working, you became a force of creativity
Yeah.
using what you'd learned. And
Yeah.
so that eventually led you to write the book, Quantum Love. That's the process that is beyond anxiety. It doesn't just go, now I'm calm, I can do what I want. It's now I'm calm, now I'm curious, now I'm connecting things, now I'm creating something. And let me ask you this, while you were in the process of writing that book, not before you started writing or after you stopped, but in the moment of typing away, how
Mhm.
anxious were you?
I was not anxious at all. I was so creative. I was making quantum love maps and charts. As soon as I start
Right.
making algorithms, I know I'm golden. Like, cause that's my creative juice. I start making
Yes.
my little algorithms on paper and all my little pathways and charts and things.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, that joyful creativity, you're not anxious. And I interviewed a bunch of people, like creative artists, and a lot of them were incredibly anxious
Yes.
when they're not creating. And
Yes.
so they turn to their creativity almost as a haven, a sanctuary. And here's the reason that is brilliant. If you are facing a problem, especially an unprecedented problem, like the
Mhm.
pandemic or like climate change or whatever it is, doing what you've done before is not going to help because this problem is unprecedented and you don't know the rules. If you turn to your creativity instead of your anxiety, you will begin to explore, create, connect, and find solutions to every problem. On the
Yeah.
left side of your brain, you're just like hunkering down going, I must control everything and do only what I've done before.
Yeah.
And on
And I
the
have
right
to
side,
find you're not. Yeah. Like I noticed when I got anxious, when and I had to stop myself because my knee jerk thing is to go into what I call fix, manage, and control mode. Okay. My
oh
son
yeah,
is feeling depressed.
control.
Let me try to find the solutions, find a treatment program, and I get into that's my left brain, right? But moving more. And what's really cool about that also is that David Hawkins, who wrote this book, Power versus
Love
Force,
him.
where he created the map of consciousness and he was
Yeah.
able to calibrate the energetic
Yeah.
frequency of every emotional state and its impact.
Yeah.
And he found that someone who is in a high frequency, which would basically be a peaceful, quantum love zone, the zone you got into with the bird, right?
Mhm.
Someone who is in that zone positively affects up to 70,000 people
Yep.
who are in a place of fear and anger
Yep.
or hate or that kind of thing. So you're not just helping yourself. So for those of us who, like me, who are worried, like I'm mostly worried now, and I want to ask you about this, about slightly, I wouldn't say they're existential threats because they seem pretty real or pretty possible, but like all the things that could happen because of
Yep.
what's happening in the world right now. And it's all arguable. It could go in a million different directions.
Yeah,
But
we don't know.
we don't know, right? But
Yeah.
if you're worried about that, doing this process not only makes your life much more pleasant, but you are actually helping to solve that which you are afraid of.
Exactly.
Your positive impact on everyone around you and the
Yeah.
world around you. And if more of us do that, then there'll be less to be scared of.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things the left hemisphere does with its little control stories is it absolutely believes itself to be right. No matter,
Yes.
and this is why you can take people who have strong, say, political views and show them actual evidence in that contradicts their belief. And you know what happens? The beliefs grow stronger
Oh, I'm
because they feel
experiencing that
attacked. The
now.
left hemisphere feels attacked and it like doubles down. And that is not the way to solve a problem, to ignore the data and just imagine fear. But when you start getting creative with whatever circumstance there is, you are in the best possible position to form solutions. There's two quotes from Indian gurus that I like to put side by side. One of them is from Nisargadatta Maharaj. He said, the only true statement the mind can make is, I do not know. You can never be sure what's going to happen. Then there's another Indian guru who says, I exist in continuous creative response to whatever is present. That's a whole life plan right there.
Yeah.
Except what Asians in Asia they call don't know mind, that we can't be sure of anything. And then creatively respond to whatever is present with you. So you get into a calm state because you're going into your grieving sons, and suddenly they're calming down, and then they're online and they pick an inspirational meme and send it out, and it affects a whole bunch of other people. In my book, I talk about Maria Ressa, who won the Nobel Peace Prize. She was a journalist in the Philippines, and she was investigating the corrupt government and publishing stuff about them. And they started a smear campaign. She was getting up to 90 death threats and hate mail emails per hour. And you know what she and her team did? They got curious. They had every reason to be afraid, but instead they became curious and they did research on the hate mail. And they found that lies, especially frightening lies, spread 6 times faster than facts, true facts on the internet.
Wow.
But there is one thing that travels as fast as lies, and that is inspiration. So you go in, you're calm, your sons get calm, they start to interact with other people, they find things, you find things that inspire you, and you pass those on, and those travel as fast as the crazy lies.
Yeah.
No one's got a chance at happiness.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you this, because to me, there's two kinds of, I mean, maybe it's all the same, you tell me, but there's two sources or categories of fear. There's the fear of so there's the fear like of my son who's got, who's in this really dark place, feeling hopeless and helpless. And like, what's the point of life? Right. Which feels, like a potential imminent concrete,
Yeah.
that's specific to my life, right? And our life.
Yeah.
And then there's this more existential thing happening of a like even more of a might happen, whether it's around,
Yeah.
I don't have stories that one candidate is going to be the source of our destruction and the other is the source of our
Right.
salvation. But like, for instance, I am really worried about the anti-Semitism that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Personally worried because
Yeah.
even though I don't, identify with the Jewish faith, I am Jewish and my kids
Right.
are Jewish and I'm experiencing it and I'm
It's
watching
terrifying.
it. Right. So, but it's also, whatever this will, sometimes I can be like with whatever, like this will happen or not happen. I can't control it. I can just do my little piece. And then sometimes I'm like, shit, am I going to have to move to Israel? Like what's going, how bad is this going to get? Right. So is it different? I have two questions. One, is it different how you move through each of those kind of fears, the more existential kind of abstract threat in the world and the one that's like in your living room?
Right.
And also when we get to creativity, are we moving? Because I know a lot of what you write about and speak about is sometimes the creativity has nothing to do with the problem or the thing you're anxious about. It's just moving into a creative space.
Yeah.
So do they work the same?
Okay. So first question first. There are two species of frightening feelings. One is true fear. And that's the animal fear I described that goes up. And then when the threat is gone, it goes down again. That's how fear is meant to work. And then there's anxiety. So fear, if you've read The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, great book, came out decades ago. But I remember as I was typing, I need to read Gavin de Becker's work. And I get an email, it pops up, it says, hi, you don't know me. My name is Gavin de Becker.
Wow.
I know,
That's
stuff like that was happening to me the whole time I was writing.
That's your whole life, everything. I mean, every
It's
time I
great.
talk to you, that shit's going down for you. It's amazing.
So he wrote a beautiful, literally wrote the book on this. He's a violence prevention expert because he lived in fear his whole childhood and he learned things about it. And what he tells us is that real fear is like being shot from a cannon. You get a very clear sense of what to do. And it could be that there's a tiger in the room and but you know what to do. This is when people can lift cars off their loved ones and stuff. If there's a larger looming threat out there, as you said, an existential threat, what happens is if you tune into your creativity and you're always in a calm space and something needs to change, this gets a little woo-woo, but the right side of the brain gets a little woo-woo.
Yeah, we like woo-woo on this show.
Yeah.
So
I mean, why did Gavin Becker write to me while I was talking about him after I hadn't for 20 years? Anyway, because I think things broadcast.
Yes.
So somehow, and I've had this happen many times to me, I think, oh, I need to move. And I just get up and move. And people are like, why are you moving? I don't know. I knew I needed to move. And as soon as I make that decision, there's no fear. But if I don't make the decision, and it comes from a very clear, very calm place, and it doesn't say, be afraid, be afraid. It says, act. Martha, here's what you do. This is what you need to do. It's super calm. It's super clear. And it's very, very strong. And if I resist it, I get more and more afraid. Anxiety is when you're just sitting around eating chips with your friends on the couch and you start thinking about, what would happen if COVID mutated to a deadly strand and suddenly everybody's telling the story. Oh my God, what do they do? Should we all put on masks right now? I don't know if that'll help. Like, the difference and the difference is peace. When I wrote The Way of Integrity, I found through research that the one statement people felt as most truthful in their bodies was the statement, I am meant to live in peace. And it sounds weird to say that you can be in peace and afraid at the same time. But I mean, I start out this book with this moment when I was writing the introduction I was in a cottage at Londolozi in a game preserve in South Africa where there are animals wandering through the camp all over the place. And I didn't know the door next to me was open. It was a screen door. There was a screen door and it was pitch dark outside. So I didn't see anything. And as I'm riding along, I hear, and I was like, I know that sound. that is a leopard calling, and it's in my room.
Oh, Lord.
Because it was literally about 6 feet away from me. And it was just kind of, it had come to the door to say, this place is mine, and then it went away. But I had the most intense fear
I
reaction.
can
You can't even
imagine.
imagine.
Yeah.
I was so flooded with adrenaline. And then I turned and I saw it walking away, and I was like, whew. And I'm like,
Danger averted. Yeah.
that's how fear works. Then I start to worry about, okay, I'm getting older. What if I die and my family needs me and they're not going to, what should I do? Whatever, the endless stories. And Gavin talks about how that kind of worry and anxiety actually makes us so divorced from the present moment that if something scary comes into our field, we don't see it.
Because we're so busy being scared about the abstracts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a famous case where a man was driving a bus, a double-decker bus, and he was on a hands-free headset talking to his sister. They got into an argument, and he got so angry and so defensive that he did not notice he was driving toward a bridge that was
Oy.
only going to allow one story, and it just took the second story off the truck. A lot of people were killed. Did he see it? His eyes were fine. He wasn't looking at anything different. He wasn't texting. His attention was on, I am being attacked by my sister and I need to fight back. And his attention got very narrow because that's what the anxiety spiral does. And boom, he did not notice what was actually happening.
Yeah.
So if you notice what's actually happening and you keep coming back, and being with the parts of you that are anxious and saying, boy, it really is a scary world. I understand why you feel that way.
And then
let's write a poem. Let's dance. Let's do something that brings us lightness and joy. And the interesting thing about creativity is that it brings together things that have never been brought together before. So then you get solutions popping out of places. As you said, the creativity may seem to have nothing to do with the problem.
Yeah.
So
that's what I want to be clear on. So it's not like I'm worried about anti-Semitism and I need to get creative about how to help people be less anti-Semitic. It's that I am moving toward creative pursuits. And you mentioned dance. That's like my number one thing to shift.
wonderful.
Do that for anger. I do that for grief. I do that for fear. I'm a big dance in the kitchen and in the yard kind of person, or grounding outside, or painting, or I'm learning ceramics now. That really helps.
Oh man, that's great.
So
anything that lights you up
that kind. So it doesn't have. So by creative, what you mean, what I think you're saying is that it has nothing to do with the thing you're afraid of, but what it's doing is activating and lighting up your right brain.
Yes.
In a way that changes what's happening internally, and also probably changes your relationship in some ways. And I'm curious what you would say about this with that which you're afraid of.
Yes. And I can't wait to read your book, because what happened with your sons, I've seen powerfully replicated over and over and over. One of the people I reference in the book is a man named Chris Voss, who was the FBI's lead hostage negotiator for a while. And he would go into these situations where people literally had loaded guns pointed at each other. Their anxiety is off the charts. They got cortisol squirting out of their ears. And how did he talk to them? He says, you put on a late night DJ voice, low, slow, mellifluous. And then you say to them, wow, you sound like you're really having a bad day and you really want a helicopter to get out of this situation. Tell me about that. And people would, he'd go into a situation and people would be like, no, we have to fight. We have to kill.
Yeah.
He'd be like, tell me how you're feeling about that.
And that immediately disarmed them, probably. They're like, no one's asked me. Let me tell you everything.
Yeah. And he's got lots of great stories in his books about how that. I once talked to a person who worked in, he was a law enforcement person who not took care of, but he dealt with drug cartels coming across the border. And he told me how he would go into these rooms where drug dealers were counting their money and counting their drugs, and there would be gunfights and there would be all this stuff that happened. And then he learned Aikido, which is in Japanese, it's the way of the harmonious spirit.
Okay.
And it's all about getting absolutely peaceful and accepting of every part of yourself.
Mm.
Absolute self-acceptance, absolute self-love. And that really, that you can't do enough practice of self-love,
Amen.
self-kindness. And he learned to be so kind to himself. And then he went to his next, they were raiding a drug house. And he said to his friends, let me go alone. And they're like, are you crazy? He's like, no, I just feel this. He opens the door, he walks in. He says, okay, guys, you know how this is going to end. You're going to go to prison one way or another. Let's just do it the easy way. And they all got up and went.
It's like the bluebird, but on steroids.
What you're hitting with quantum love is an absolutely crucial dimension of the human experience, that its time has come.
Oh, yeah.
That is the solution. And you may get to it by dancing in the garden.
Yeah. Well, however you need to do it, that makes total sense to me. And,
Yeah.
And that it is sort of it's the antidote, right? So if you're in that anxiety spiral, just to summarize what you're saying, when you go into that anxiety spiral, the keys, I mean, obviously read the book because it can give a lot of more information, but the first step is to just accept, be with yourself, have compassion, don't try to change it or control it or make it wrong. And then to shift to do something that will engage your right brain, create something that is creative and that isn't fixing, managing, controlling things.
Yeah. So, that's a brilliant summary. And there are 3 parts of it if people need a mnemonic to help. First one is calm the creature.
Okay.
The second one is connect with the creative inside you.
Yeah.
And the third one is surrender to creation.
Ooh.
So it's a letting go when you start to operate that creativity on the right side of your brain. Just as the anxiety spiral makes other people anxious, the calm creative spiral that actually builds on itself as well, it communicates very strongly to other people and to animals. And I don't even know, it could be to inanimate objects. I don't even know how far this transformation of consciousness that you call quantum love will affect the world. But I think it's way more powerful than our particular culture likes to believe.
Right. Yeah. And even more powerful than social media.
Yes. And it
powerful.
filters through social media. It finds its way. It's like water. It just finds its way. And when you get to that moment of inspiration, and that's what you put on social media, bam, it travels as fast as the lies.
Yeah. And also, I'll tell you something else I've noticed about social media. And I keep saying this to people. If you want to know what energetic frequency you're living in, look at your explore page, because that, my explore page for the most part is filled with kittens and babies.
I know, babies laughing. That's like,
and nature. But if I start seeing floods of anti-Semitic reporting and violence, and I'm like, oh shit, I've been in a state, and it is literal because the algorithm is seeing my eyes linger or noticing, it's reflecting to me. It's like a litmus test for where I'm living energetically without me even being conscious of where I'm living. And when I see that, I'm like, oh,
that's brilliant.
Yeah, I've been in some place where I'm a frequency match to this,
That is so brilliant. Yeah. And whenever there's a clenching in my body, in my jaw, in my shoulders, I'm like, okay, where am I? That's my signal that I'm anxious. Yeah. And then I go to, what am I anxious about? And here's what I've discovered. And this is very controversial. I put it at the end of the book, not the beginning. It's a very simple 3 words: anxiety always lies.
I agree. Always. What is the thing with the algorithm? What's the thing? I can't think of the word, but what fear stands for? False.
Yeah, false events appearing real.
Yeah.
I've also heard it as fuck everything and run. Which could happen, either it's one of those 2. Okay.
Yeah.
If it's real fear, then it's the second one. If it's just a vague nebulous fear, false events appearing real.
Yeah, I love that. I want to ask you about something kind of related but separate, but it's something else you said to me once that I think about often these days because I've now been stepping into creating I've always just shown up for events. I've never
Yeah.
done my own events, but since I've been really stepping into helping people, I just feel so passionate about showing people that there's a different way to grieve and that
Yeah.
grief can be a portal of like
Yeah.
profound and gorgeous transformation. So I'm really being called to create these events,
Wow.
and huge anxiety has been coming up around if I build it, they won't come. And I keep going back to this thing you once said to me. This was years ago, and you were planning some event. I don't even remember what it was. And I don't even remember why this came up, but you said, all I do is lie down on the floor in my pajamas and call in everybody who this is going to be a match, this is going to be in service to. And then
Yeah.
it just happens. And I'm like, holy shit, that like, I want some of what she's having. So can you,
Well, you
is
just
that,
saw it
you
with your
remember?
sons.
Yeah.
You just wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea, if you go to quantum mechanics, and I know that's not literal, but one of the interesting things about quantum mechanics is that it is shown that two particles, once they have been entangled energetically, respond to each other instantaneously, even if they are separated by the entire universe. And they do it faster than the speed of light,
Yes.
which means they somehow are one thing. They're
Yes.
not separate.
Yeah.
So, and that is the distance of the universe. So why shouldn't you be able to lie down on your floor, use your consciousness, which as far as we know is part of the consciousness of what created all matter, and like find some folks in California. It's not that
But
hard.
but like, tell me what you do, because I'm really curious. So you're there, you're moving yourself into a state of peace, and
Yeah.
then you're imagining
Well,
reaching
let's
out.
play. Let's play with it.
Okay.
Let's not
All
do
right.
hypotheticals.
Okay.
So you've got a real thing to work on. I love, you see, I exist in continuous creative response to whatever is present. So let's
Yeah.
work with what's
Amen.
present.
All right. Well, this
So,
wasn't even going to be my example, but I love this one because it's coming up. I have this retreat in October that I'm
mm,
worried about filling because I worry about filling it. And
sure.
I'm making a financial investment, right? You have to make guarantees or get the space or what,
You do.
right? So it's a financial investment that I'm worried, I'm like, let me just break even, much less
Right.
make money,
Right.
right?
But that's not really what you want. That's
No,
an
I want to
anxiety
make
that you
money for my
yeah.
for my 501c3
Okay.
because then I'm going to give scholarships to people to go to these things.
Yes.
That's my plan.
I'm right there with you. People think that best-selling authors are just rolling in gold. Getting a best-selling book is a slow way to make a little money, people. It's just not what you think it is. So let's, first of all, go to the part of you that is terrified that not enough people will show up. And don't try to influence what shows up in your imagination. Just feel that stress, that
Okay.
panicky feeling. And just tell me who in there, if it's a little creature or a little girl or a little boy, who's in there thinking? Who's in there fearing?
Yeah, I would say it's like this is interesting. She's kind of like a teenager me. So it's like
Mhm.
kind of the one that was bullied and socially
Yeah.
rejected, that
Yeah.
version of me.
Ooh, okay. So she's sitting in there. Let's say she's 12 years old, and horrible things have been happening to her, real
Mhm.
horrible things. She can feel whatever she damn well wants to feel. We're not going to take that away from her, but we are going to love her. So let's go in and sit down. Let's say she's sitting, where is she sitting?
She's sitting like off where recess is, off like in the corner, just trying to kind of stay away from the mean girls and out of their line of vision so they don't come at
Okay.
her.
So you and I go over and we sit down a safe distance away from her, but close enough to let her know we're present. And we say, what's her name?
I think it's Laura. She seems to
Okay,
be like a version of me.
great. So we say, little Laura, we really get it. Anybody who'd been through what you've been through would be scared like this. And what you've been through is bad. And you don't never let anyone tell you it didn't matter. It is a terrible experience. We did not evolve to put packs of 13-year-olds together. No, you're supposed to have the care of a village that is as all ages. We're
Yeah.
the elders of this village now, and we are here to sit with you and help you grieve the suffering. So how's she feeling? as we
She
talk.
she was immediately relieved when we just sat down. But yeah, she likes that. She kind of threw her head back like, phew.
Whew, good.
Yeah.
So we're like, those mean girls, we don't like them much right now. And
Yeah.
we're not going to let them get to you. And you should feel what you want to feel, but let us tell you right now what those girls are saying about you and the way they're making you feel. It's all lies.
Yeah.
They don't even know how destructive it is for them, but it is destructive for them. More destructive for them even than it is for you. So let's just get this clear. We're not going to believe what they said. So she gets to remain anxious. But now you, grown up Laura,
Mhm.
look around that gym and see the other kids that are in agony and hiding it and masking. See the kid whose parents are getting divorced. See the kid who's secretly already an alcoholic. See, whatever. Sorry, a user of alcohol. I think that was politically incorrect. Sorry.
That's okay.
See the kids who are going to have a first love affair that will destroy them. See the kids who are going to be pregnant before they're out of high school, and just watch them go forward into adult life and see that almost every single one of them is broken.
Yeah.
And afraid, so afraid. So we're going to love on little Laura, and she gets to go with you everywhere. And if anybody tries to confront her, you and I are going to step in front of her in your imagination and say, no, you don't get to lie and get away with it anymore. The anti-Semites, all that, no, we believe the truth. And now think of all those broken kids out there, and they create broken relationships, and they're so alone. I mean, we've been doing self-help since, God was a kid, and well, at least I have been.
Yeah.
And so we don't even remember how much it hurt before we started working on ourselves.
Yeah.
So just feel that there are people out there in excruciating suffering.
Yeah.
And all they really need is this quantum love that you are making available. That's all we need. And you have a method. You can honestly say, and I'm going to plug your products right here. You can honestly say, I have a way of making things better for you, and it works. Find them feel them connected to you all over the world. Is it a virtual event?
No, it's there. It's in Chicago.
Okay, great.
This one. Yeah. So
Okay, so just see all the people everywhere, and it can center geographically in North America, or you can go all over the world, and just say, find the pain of little Laura in all those other people who've never even got the first word about healing, and say, I love you. I can help you. Welcome. Come in. Come in.
So that's how you do it. That was really, really helpful, because
Did it help?
idea is so abstract to me ever since you said that to me. I'm like, wait, I just go and like ask God to bring them in. I'm just like, I'm saying, hey, you guys, come on in.
You're already connected.
Yeah. Yeah. So
you're already connected.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. I'm going to do that longer than what we just did.
Whenever you get anxious, that's it. Kindness, calm the creature, start connecting with parts of yourself, parts of other people, and then surrender to the creation, which wants to love everyone.
Yeah.
And say, I'm a pencil in the hand of God. At that point, yeah, you can let your higher power take over.
I love that. Thank you for that. Yeah, this has been such a beautiful conversation, and so, so needed as we're stepping into at least in our lifetime or adult lifetime. I know the 60s felt just as crazy to people back then. I was born in 1968, but this feels like the craziest time in most people's lifetime. And so if you've never experienced this before, it feels even scarier. So the book is called Beyond Anxiety, Curiosity, Creativity, and Finding Purpose. And we'll put the link to the book in the show notes, to your website. Is there anything else you want to make sure that we let people know about where to find?
Nah, whatever. Things find their way.
You're just going to lie on the floor and invite them.
I just lie around in my pajamas. I'm not even kidding.
I love that so much. And I feel like, that's what I find myself saying again and again. I am just not interested in hustling anymore. That causes me anxiety. I shall do no more hustling.
Amen.
This is the hustle antidote, because hustle comes from a place of anxiety too, unless you love hustling and it lights you up, which it doesn't me.
Hustling means push things push people forcefully in a direction you want them to go, push yourself in a direction you want to go. It also means to cheat, swindle and or to prostitute oneself.
Oh, okay. You're right. That kind of hustle too. So no, we don't want to hustle. And yet that's something that people value in our society. Well, she's got hustle.
That's what I'm saying. It's all the story of this left hemisphere. And I go into it more in the book, but it's crazy. It's literally insane.
Yeah, it is. And we don't realize the insane assumptions we're operating on. And those are causing us the pain. So I'm so excited for your book. I'm so excited. I'm so grateful for you as a human being in my life, but just that you exist on the planet for all of us. So thank you.
Well, I have to say, last time we talked, it was a really rough time. And to see you take such tragedy and such terrible grief and turn it into love. I mean, I knew you would do it, but I'm looking at a miracle right now. You are astonishing.
Oh, you're going to make me cry. Thank you, Martha.